any. So we can move into the line item budget again. And tonight I have Ken, Jim, and Mike is going to do part of his. So who wants to start? Jim?
I had personnel policy, and there's nothing. I already talked to Mary, and she said there's stuff going on, but there's no budget files going on. I didn't think that was something. Talked to Mary Blanchard about it, because she briefly talked about the three major trying to fill. Okay, so, sorry, thank you, Larry.
Yeah, make sure you're in the mic.
So I guess the first, if I'm not mistaken, is line item is Landfill Recycling Center on C9. Okay, and there hasn't been, the salaries are self-explanatory, you can see the percentages. The only major increase is under purchase of services. And if you want to go back to the detail budget, what's mainly under there, for that 14,340, is 11,000 for material, cover material for the landfill. And I think Butch touched on that a week or two ago when he said there weren't he didn't have the volume of sweepings he used to have because we're using less sand. So because we're using less sand and using more salt, those sweepings don't end up at the landfill to be used as cover material. So their budget went up $11,000 for cover material. And then there's $3,000 there for an upgrade to their security panel, which it's explained earlier on in here. Robin has that where she's upgrading security panels at 3 locations, and one of them is the recycling center. And that's the bulk of the increase, other than there's $1,500 for salary, but that's based on the percentage there. And also, it struck me that the 1.2% seemed like a small increase on the salary line, but that has to do more with the fact that that's bargaining group percentage, because that stuff, some of that falls under the DPW. So that's not the 3% automatic stuff that we get for COLA and things like that. So, and also if you look over, the increase prior to that from 21 to 22 was 16.6%. So there was a catch-up there where we had to get everybody, when we did the major overhaul of the wages and salary structure, which we have now, and we've had for, I think, the last 3 years. I think that was initiated in 2021. So of the increase of 15,892, 14,300 I just described is the cover material and the upgrade to the security panel. Any questions on that?
I have actually a counterintuitive question. Not based on why we have this increase, but how come the increase is so small? Because I would have thought, based on the cost of services and gasoline, and the fact that we don't make a lot of money on, what the recycling center was intended for, and we have to basically ship all that stuff away. How come the shipping costs aren't higher, that carting away?
I can't explain that.
Okay, I just thought that it's the same. It's that 70. I think it was roughly $76,000. I just thought it might be higher, and it wasn't. So okay.
It could have also been timing, right? Because a lot of these budgets got put together late 2021. They're finally coming together in here. These gasoline increases are fairly recent, and probably haven't gone back and adjusted that particular line item in there.
I noticed the other day, because I go to the same station all the time, and it's gone from a high of $4.30, and now it's down to $3.69 just in a month. So the prices are starting to slide back down a little bit. So let's keep our fingers crossed, because that's a big nut for the town, gasoline, especially with police.
So you're more than free to make a motion for your...
Okay, I'll make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend to town meeting that we approve for Landfill Recycling Center, that we vote to recommend for approval the amount of $323,667.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Kathy? Okay. Any further questions or comments for Jim related to the landfill recycling center? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, so there's 8 of us here, so it's 8-0.
And one thing we may hear about later with the recycling center that's under consideration, Ken couldn't tell me when we'd know more about it, but their fire suppression system is no longer repairable. They're in a situation where they have to replace it. And it's out for bid right now, and there was some misunderstanding, I guess, on the specs. So I tried to get a hold of him yesterday and today. I was unsuccessful. I left messages. But they're going to be coming back either with an RFT or with a warrant article to fund that. So we'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
And he did mention that
Kevin?
that's a mandated piece of equipment. They cannot operate without that being an operational unit at the site. They cannot accept hazardous materials unless they have that fire suppression system operating.
So Barbara, I assume that was the you I heard.
It was, so it's going to be, it's going to be a reserve fund transfer request once we get the quotes and the bid. But it's not going to be a town meeting vote. We want to get it repaired sooner rather than later.
So Barbara, while you're here, I know in one of our earlier meetings, there was some, I think it was Bob Reed who made the comment about one of the things we're looking at too is the capping of the landfill. Do you happen to know right now what our balance is in our current capping account?
I don't, but I can get that for you. They're in the process of, they did a feasibility study, and I think some information went to the Board of Health last week. I haven't gotten the details yet, but we can share that information with the Finance Committee also.
Right.
As to, it's supposed to be projecting out what the available life of the landfill will be.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they were going to give us different options to extend the life. So I will make sure that all gets to you.
Perfect, thank you. Give me.
Next would be Board of Health on C10. The salary lines are pretty straightforward. The 3% are the COLAs, and the department head is eligible for an additional maximum of a 3% increase out of the fund that falls under the TA's budget. That's for, I believe,
All right, right.
the 3 top grades that we have in the new structure. And Barbara, you could correct me, but they're not step and grade.
Yeah, it's a split. There's some level
There's a
where
minimum, there's a maximum, and then it moves in between. And the people in those, I think it's 3 grades, but Barbara could correct me. It may be 4, but I think it's 3, are eligible for that fund that
pool.
falls on the TA, the merit pool. That's exactly it. It's the merit pool. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Purchase of services, I believe the 4,000, I'll look over here on D33. The 4,000 is a new software they're buying, they're purchasing that'll allow, and I did talk to Linda and I did talk to Ken about this. And the beauty of this software is they'll have an iPad or the like, and they'll be able to go and do their inspections and record the information so that when they're done, they're pretty much done. And when they go back to the office, all they have to do is download the information. All the paperwork is completed electronically as they're doing the inspection. And they expect that to save 25 to 30% of the time that's involved in performing and documenting an inspection, because they can do it as part of the process. So that seems like small dollars for something that can increase that much, because they charge for everything they do. Time is money. So that's that $4,000. And that's pretty much it in that category. It's the salaries plus that 4,000 under Board of Health.
Is that just a one-time thing?
Yes.
Or at least for a few years?
For now, it's a one-time thing. If it's software, there'll probably be upgrades down the road.
Right,
You
that's
never
what I
know.
mean. But,
well, nowadays, most software companies are going to the subscription model too.
Right.
So you start with the big one, and then every year you got to pay so much.
They just nibble you every year a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. So if there's no other questions, I'll make the motion that we recommend to town meeting for the Board of Health the amount of $122,162.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Lee?
Sorry, what was the number?
122.
122,162.
Seeing a discrepancy, Mike?
I'm looking on page D33, which is $60,000 more, but there's probably something in that budget that doesn't,
I've got transferred somewhere else.
well, let me just check.
Which page do you want?
22, 27.
So Mike, on D33, the community health for 5,000 and the public health inspector are in different budgets, and that's the total.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, they're in,
Okay, so I have a first and second. Mike's question's been answered. Are there any other questions? Okay, so all those in favor? And that's 8-0. So it's unanimous.
Is that Kathy again?
No, it was Lee.
and lastly, on C10, we have inspections and testing. So, again, it's pretty straightforward. It's the 3% COLA, and these are step and grade positions. So, the increase is a combination of the 3% COLA plus the step for that position. And Barbara was very helpful because the step doesn't exactly fall into any one of the slots on the chart, but the reason it doesn't is because there's a variation of a very small one of standard hours. So if you figure, as an example, just an example, you figure, okay, an average year is 2,080 hours. This might be 2,097 hours or 2,000. It's off by a, am I stating that correctly, Barbara? She's on.
Which position are we talking
We're
about?
talking about the public health inspector. The fact that it doesn't fit exactly in the slot on the step and grade because the hours, I think as you explained to me, it's based on the hourly rate, the increase, not the annual salary, because the hours aren't specific to a locked number. That's not a locked number, but a standard number.
Basically, they don't work X amount of numbers
They're not
per
working,
year.
the person's not working 35 hours a week times 52 weeks. It might be 36 hours a week times 52 weeks, which makes it a little bit
Oh,
off the chart.
yeah, it's different because there's, for any of the hourly employees, I'm with you now, Jim, sorry. For any of the hourly employees, there's an extra day next fiscal year, and so that day is added in
Okay,
so that they can get paid.
and based on that, when you gave me the amount, I backed into the hours and it came out to 1,827 hours, which is, to me, doesn't fit any standard number. So anyway, so that's the increase is pretty much the personnel cost, and that's, questions on that? That's pretty straightforward. So I'll make a motion that we recommend to town meeting to approve the amount of $54,153 for inspections and testing.
Have a second? Ken? Any questions, comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous, 8-0. Okay, and you still have community health.
I do, okay. Let me see.
That's right above. You skipped right over.
Oh, yeah,
between
okay.
There's a little gap.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's where he was going.
Jeez. No increase. Let me find that in the detail budget.
I think it's in the health department.
Yeah, it's a single line item inside the Board of Health, right? Yep.
Okay, give me 1 second. It's on the Board of Health. It's just
Yeah, it's a
33.
single line item, you know.
It's community health and there's no change. So, I guess it's. I'll make a motion we recommend to town meeting the amount of $5,000 for community health.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Kathy? Further questions or comments? All those in favor? 8-0. Okay. And I believe that takes care of
Yeah, that's
everything
it.
for you. All right, so we'll just keep going right along this way. So Mike, you want to just take what you got tonight, and then we'll go to Ken.
So I have DPW, which is on the detail section, page D30. Total budget of $1,458,641. So on the salary section up above, that's just regular adjustments for the various employees. There's no changes in staff, either increases or decreases this year, so it's just the regular annual adjustments depending on where people are in their positions over there. On purchase of services, there's roughly a $30,000 increase. That really comes from three sections. And working from the bottom up for the new ones, there's a new line item in here for wood grinding. If anyone takes their brush down to the landfill, you see the big pile of wood in the back there. That's also, trees fall down in the storm, DPW picks them up, they put them back there. So they've been amassing a rather large pile that they need to get chipped up and taken out of there. So this $20,000 is the cost to have someone come in and remove them, either chipping or hauling them away, one way or the other. So that's what they're budgeting for that. There's another new one-year item here. It's $5,000 for maintenance of the softball fields. So Annie over at Recreation has some money to do some upgrades at Turner's Field, but the softball field is in need of some repairs. So they're budgeting $5,000 for DPW to go in and do some upgrades and repairs to the field. There isn't a specific scope as of today. They still need to work out exactly what has to be done to make improvements to that field for playability and some long-term care. But they've included $5,000 in here to do some needed upgrades and maintenance to the softball field.
Where is that field?
That's the one behind the barn.
Oh, okay.
And then up above, in the MS4 stormwater sampling, the catchment investigation and nitrogen investigation, there are some new line items, one's a carryover from last year, the stormwater sampling for $4,000. The other two investigation and valuations are new items for this year of $4,000 and $7,000 each. Again, these are new DEP reporting inspection requirements that are being imposed upon the town, and DPW needs to go out and hire the firms, bring in the staff to do these inspections and complete those DEP mandated reports. So with that, I would make a recommendation that the Finance Committee recommend a town meeting approve a DPW budget of $1,458,641.
I have a different number, Mike, sorry. I have like 1,235,853.
All right, hang on.
Because I think snow and ice and all that's in there too, and that's.
Yep,
that's
yep,
Oh, that's
broken
it.
down
that's
line
right.
item budget.
Yeah.
Yep, I have to take those out.
So the number in the line item budget I have is 1,235,853.
Page C9.
1,235,853. Yep. That will be my number.
Okay, great. Do I have a second? Jim seconds. I just want to make a clarification. It's not really a question in here. I just wanted to have it noted, and I'm sure we all know this, but so people who look at this later on, you see the increase for the department head salary at only 2.3%, which seems lower than everyone else. But that's because he also gets paid out of water and sewer. So part of his salary comes from the water and sewer accounts as well. So that's why this looks just a little different.
And that'll be itemized in the warrant articles on those two departments, water
Correct.
and sewer, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see that number.
I mean, our note's missing, we'll have to add it back in, because it used to be, there used to be a note in here that told you what his total salary was based on what was in the water and sewer articles, and it's not here right now. All right, so I have a first and a second. Any further questions or comments?
Who was the second?
Mr. Waddick. All those in favor? And that's 8-0, thank you.
Let me just check one more item here. Okay, so then I'm gonna go to snow and ice removal line item,
Okay.
which is $222,788. Which includes the snow and ice related supplies and the plowing contractor line items, a few other miscellaneous things in here. That is generally a level funded from last year's. Actually, it's a slight increase of like $1,000 from last year. And again, right, yep. And again, this isn't one where we try to figure out exactly what we're gonna need. We kind of meet that minimum increase requirements to show that we're funding this account. And then to the extent that we underspend, we have the ability to do reserve fund transfers to cover any
We can
deficits.
deficit spend, yeah. The only account you can do that in. All right, so you have a motion? All right. I know you're juggling a lot of balls
Yep.
there, too.
Yep, I got three things going. Yeah, so I'll make a motion that Finance Committee recommend the town meeting approve a snow and ice removal budget of $222,788.
Do I have a second? Jim? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hey, all those in favor? That's 8-0, great.
And while I'm at it, I might as well do the town road maintenance line item, which is the level funded $6,000 we've been putting in there. Again, this is for private road maintenance, to the extent that some maintenance is needed on some of the private roads, the bare minimum that we would need to do on those roads. That's what we use this account to fund that. So I would make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town meeting approve town road maintenance budget of $6,000.
I see Jim seconds again. So, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's 8-0. So you all set for tonight, Mike?
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Talentino.
Okay, so first one I was going over here, Town Council, D7. I looked at the budget of 100,000 to 110. It seems very consistent throughout the year. So from the attorney is KP Law in the Boston area. I didn't see anything unusual about this. So I would like to recommend it to the Finance Committee, recommends the town meeting that we agree to a budget of $110,000.
So I was going to say, one of the lawyers should second.
So I did.
I have a question then.
Okay, please.
Do you know if the town ever, in the past few years, has considered changing or looking at other, because there's, other firms that do town council work?
I assume, quite frankly, I was under the assumption when you go out for bid, you got to go for 3 bids for town. I assume that's still appropriate here.
Barbara, do you want to share any insight that you may have?
We have not gone out to bid recently.
Do you happen to know when the last time we did was?
I do not.
It's been a while.
I would think it has, because they've been around for a long, long time. Supplement and Page?
Yeah,
As far back as I can remember.
I remember the prior one.
Yeah, I remember the prior one, but that was 30 years ago, so.
Hey, I have a long memory.
Okay, so I have first and second. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then, all those in favor? It's 8-0.
Okay, the next one is, I'm going in line of order as far as the pages are concerned. D9,
Okay,
which is the town clerk. Again, looked at the budget, looked at the percentages from last year to this year recommendation, about 5.9%. Looked in, pretty much in line to for everything else in last year's budget. Didn't see anything extraordinary that jumped out that said, okay, this is a problem or could be a problem. So as far as I'm concerned, it looked fine to me. So I have to recommend we recommend this to the town committee for a budget of $131,051 to 2023 budget.
do I have a second?
Second.
Mike? Okay. I just have one question, and that is, I see there's a longevity in there, and I'm just curious, who qualified this year for the longevity, the town clerk or the assistant town clerk?
I can't answer that. I don't know that one. Barbara?
I believe it's the assistant. I'll tell you in a minute. I gotta look it up.
Okay. Thank you.
How many elections are there this year? Because I see some
Three.
costs are up, so there's,
Well, I
must be
think it's
three, right?
itemized in the front here.
I think we have the state primary, we have the town election, we just had state primary, and then we have November elections.
And you got early
It's the
voting.
it is the assistant.
It was the assistant.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. All right, so
Where would they usually, what line item would they usually have the rental? Because we don't have that this year. So it seems like there should be a decrease somewhere. We're not renting
$150.
OSV.
Yeah, that's a good question. So,
Okay, that's
wait, hang on. Okay. So Barbara, I don't know if you heard Kathy's question about, because we're not renting a place to do the elections this year, how come there isn't a decrease in costs? Or are we still investigating rentals?
You're in the town clerk budget, aren't you?
Yeah, or is that under elections and,
Yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be under the election and registration budget, which is D10, and there's no money budgeted for that.
okay.
So all the elections are going to take place here in Town Hall?
For right now, yes.
Right, thank you. All right, so on the town clerk budget itself, we have a first and a second for 131,051. The second was Mike Hager. Do we have any further questions or comments? All those in favor? It's 8-0. Thank you.
As far as elections and registration, this is D10. I looked at it, there were some large jumps here, so obviously raising a lot of questions. But per Barbara's introduction to the budget, with the increase of elections this year, this seems to be a little bit of anomaly as far as jumping from where it is until this year. So I assume going forward, if there's less elections, it'll jump back or revert back to where it was before.
That has been past practice.
So that was my take. But there's no question there's questions to be asked. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do is, I think the Finance Committee will recommend to the town meeting a budget for the election and registration in the amount of $36,912.
Do I have a second?
Well, sir.
Lee? Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Okay, it's 8-0.
Okay, the next one's going to be town facilities, and I think it's going to entail more than my particular area. I think there's a few other people on the committee that have some facilities. I think Kathy, you have one. I think you have safety.
I have the public safety.
Yeah, well, you may not be ready tonight or whatever, but, so the ones I was responsible for are 15 through 19.
And before you get too far, Robin is on the call. It's her facility questions.
Good evening, Robin.
Good evening.
Thanks for calling in.
No problem. I'm here if you have any questions tonight.
So I met with Robin on the 7th, and we had a very good discussion regarding facilities. First of all, I'd like to say, looked at Robin's background and her architectural and what she's done in previously, and I think she's very suited for what we did, and I think she's very cost-conscious from a budgetary perspective as far as running facilities. That's my first take of meeting Robin, so I think it went extremely well. Overall, we discussed on custodians, this is on D15, and I was looking at that budget, and we had kind of lengthy discussion. Is this, I didn't know, was this outsourced, or there were people here, or what it was. And I think there's a total of 4 people, 3 people with 18 hours a week, and 1 with 6 hours a week. This keeps us under basically any benefits and alike. We also discussed maybe we should take these positions and maybe getting a look at maybe 1 full-time position. Because I noticed in other facilities, as far as fixing doors or other things like that, maybe we can hire somebody full-time for all facilities and have somebody rather than outsourcing all of these. You know, $1,800 here, $2,400 there. Maybe we put somebody full-time as part of this position. And at this point, I think Robin said we'd look into it down the road, but at this point, we're probably not going to head in that direction. But it's just something a little bit out of the box of thinking maybe we can use more people for multiple facilities, you know, and maybe spread the cost as far as that's concerned. So that seemed to be in line quite a bit. There's obviously some discussions on oil, fuel. That's a big one. Robin mentioned that the new contract we have expires June 30th. And right now the cost is $2.33 a gallon. I think, Barbara, you were mentioning most of the departments were budgeting somewhere around $4. And like Mike was mentioning earlier on, I think the prices may be going down or fluctuating. The last oil price I got personal home was about $5, okay? So $2.33 is about 2x. So I don't know exactly how that's going to be handled until we renegotiate it. I think the town does a good job. Robin, can you explain this CMRP, who that is?
Sure. CMRPC is the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, and they do a regional fuel procurement every year for those towns who are interested in Central Mass of participating. Basically, it's a volume buying power that they leverage for the towns in Central Mass. So we participate in their bid process every year, and some years the vendors are allowed to choose which towns they'd like to service through the contract. Sometimes we are not chosen and we have to go out and do our own procurement afterwards, which is what's happened to us in the last 2 years for heating oil. But we are back in again this year. The bids are for gasoline, diesel, heating oil, and propane. So we try to use CMRPC's bid procurement power to get a lower price in the volume. And it worked out for some sources of fuel, and sometimes it doesn't. So good source.
Oh, thank you. We also discussed along those lines of energy, had quite a bit of discussion on lighting LEDs, okay, versus regular lighting, sensors for the offices. So when people leave, the lights go off, some basic common sense things. And I think Robin's been working with Green Community. I think at one point we got $200,000, and I think we got already a total of $600,000 in a grant. So we've been doing a good job, I feel, getting some money in here for some green initiatives to reduce energy costs, which is good. Also some storm windows and the like. So I think Robin and her team has been doing a good job trying to compensate for potentially increases in fuel and the like. One thing we talked a little bit about, and I think in the 5-year budget, looking a little bit forward here, is what about EV hookups, eventually facilities? And what about maybe potential solar panels? And Robin, pretty astute being an architect, and I think for the historical buildings, just because they are historical buildings and also because of just visuals and the like, I don't think they could have or will be suitable for solar. But there might be other facilities, and maybe Kathy and whoever has the other facilities down the road that could be looked at. So this is something that may not be effective, obviously, this budget, but moving forward, it's something I think we should probably take a look at. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't work, don't know, but it's probably a good thing. I think Robin's also initiated new facility software, which I think is also going to do, it's going to consolidate a lot of things we do, and that's going to help her manage the facilities a little bit better. So she's got quite a bit on her plate. I think she's doing, again, a fine job on it. And we discussed a lot of these matters as far as moving forward and what we can do to offset some of the costs that might be going up, looking a little bit forward thinking rather than just this year's budget too. So as far as the, should I get approval for each of these items? Facilities, town hall, go one at a time, is that what it is?
Separate.
Okay. So from that perspective, looking at the other things we saw, and I think was brought up earlier, was these, the basement blackout shades, window shades, and replacement security systems. I think if you take that out, the overall budget is only increased about 4.2%. With it in there, it's about 10.6%. So Robin, on those basement blackout shades, the window shades, and the replacement security systems, I mean, all necessities, right, or not? I don't want to lead the witness.
Yeah. The shades are an attempt to reduce the energy cost. We're getting a lot of solar gain on those south-facing Main Street windows in the library. And I'd really like to see the opportunity to continue to protect the collection from the UV resources and reduce our air conditioning costs in the summer. So that's one of the reasons for the shades. And the blackout shades specific are special for the meeting room because that's where they do movies on the lower level. These three things, they are all specific to the library because they are one-time purchases for the library itself. So as opposed to pushing up the Joshua High Library budget for these one-time items and then not being able to go back down, they're in the facilities budget this year.
So I think part of it is actually will help us regarding energy. So that's a good thing from what I can tell. So looking at all this budget as it stands, and the like, and potentially new initiatives down the road, obviously, which will not affect this year's budget. I like to recommend that we recommend to the town committee a budget of $156,325 for the facilities budget.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, so questions or comments?
Question.
Jim?
I may have been distracted while it was covered because I was looking at other stuff.
You just get the mic.
Excuse me, I may have missed something, I may have been distracted, I was looking at other stuff, but under building, storage, and organization for $4,000, did anyone ask what exactly that is? It's under supplies, on D15 for facilities.
Yes, I thought there were some records in one of the facilities that needs to be placed in better storage, and this was the
That was
effort
my
to do
question,
that.
where? Was it center office building, or?
Robin, you want to answer that?
Sure. What I've been finding for the last 2 years is that as we are all department heads are working on their storage, their limited storage, and sort of consolidating files in places. I've been working to clean up the public safety attic, which is where a lot of the town hall records are. We've been doing a very good job at all departments, consolidating and boxing and reboxing and making sure that things are appropriate, and we do our annual shredding. But what we are missing are shelving units, or shelvings, and sometimes it's boxes or plastic totes in certain locations. So this is a budget for this year to help all departments further their organization and vertical use of storage instead of just sort of boxes stacked on each other. Makes it safer for people to utilize things that are on shelves. And they also have a better, they're not stacking on each other and falling apart in boxes. So this is my attempt after the last couple of years of not having a place to grab that extra shelf that we really need to get a space more efficient for operations to do that. So it could be in any of the buildings.
But it's hardware, from what I'm understanding you're saying. These are storage racks. This is hardware?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? That's 8-0.
Next item is going to be Town Hall, D16. And again, looking over the budget, it actually decreases in 2023, which is a good thing. My only question was, I saw supplies at 2,500, and then it went down to 0. So I said, why did it go? And Robin mentioned that this line item was consolidated with another budget. They just consolidated supplies in another area, so it didn't quite go away. It just went to another line item.
What was that line item?
Where'd it go, Robin?
Town hall, center office, and the senior center all went into the facilities supply budget last year where it says building supplies. Those are specific to the buildings.
So outside of that,
4,900.
So what I would like to recommend is the Finance Committee recommends to town meeting, town hall budget of $36,836.
Second.
Mike, seconded. Further questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's 8.
The next item is the central office building, D17. Again, looking at these items, it seem to be in line, in fact, pretty much flat year over year, which again is a good thing. The only question on this is, which is going to be, riddled throughout the budget, is the oil. Again, we went from, 10,000 budget recommended to 9,000. As of today, as of until June 30th, that's a good number. After that, all bets are off. So I don't know how we reconcile that, not knowing what it's going to be. As far as the budget, a budget committee would look at it. So that's a question mark until we can negotiate another oil with the consortium and go from there. But outside of that, that's the only item that I'd say raises risk to this particular budget as far as central office building.
Okay, you have a motion?
Accordingly, I'd like to recommend that the Finance Committee recommends to town meeting the central office budget of $33,446.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor? 8-0. Okay.
C18. Senior Center? So familiar, okay. Once again, in this particular case, maybe Robin can jump in. The oil budget went from about, 7,950 to 16,000, so I assume this is because of the increase in square footage?
No, this is the increase in dollar value. We were pretty accurately using the 7,900 we had for this building, for fuel oil. So from the doubling in price from $2 to $4, it doubled that line.
Okay, so for the senior center, you actually used the $4 budget, okay, so that gets us there. Okay, so that eliminates potential, at least part of the risk anyway, along those lines. Outside of that, I looked at the budgets across the board there. Didn't seem to be anything that would jump out and raise concern. So with that in mind, I'd like to recommend that the Finance Committee recommends the town meeting for the senior center budget building, $30,296.
Second.
Thank you, Mike.
And I have a question.
Go ahead, Mike.
So Robin, this one, we're forecasting $4 oil versus $2 oil. Is the senior center part of that consortium and facilities that use the bulk buying, or is this on a separate contract? That gets a separate price, and therefore we're forecasting a different rate for this one building.
So we have one single contract under the town of Sturbridge, and we serve multiple sites with the vendor. So each price will be the same. It should be, I believe Barbara plugged in $4 for all of the buildings based on the usage of the fuel for the last 2 years. So those are all calculated. So some budgets currently are a little over. For example, the safety complex, we have 41,000 this year, and I think we probably are going to use about 30,000 of that because our price is so low. So maybe that one doesn't automatically double as a line item when you're looking from year to year. And some buildings have a little bit tighter of a fuel oil budget. So by using the calculation is where we come up with a recommended column this year.
I meant recommendation, it was,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
Should we get-
okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
no, it's like,
I was looking for something else here. I'm just,
no,
I'm a little confused at the moment. So if there are no further questions, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? That's 8-0. Is that everything, Ken?
one left, it's D19, and it's the library building. Once again, jumps right out is the propane, what's going from 7,000 to 16,600. So hopefully, things change a little bit, and there's a little bit of a surplus in that area. Taking that item out, basically the budget for 2023 is essentially flat. Nothing else that I could see that jumps out that would say look different than what we good operating. So with that in mind, I recommend that the Finance Committee recommends the town meeting for the library building a budget of $34,890.
Second.
Mike? Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? It's 8-0. So, does that wrap up with what you think you have done?
I just have the veterans, but that's a,
Okay, because the reason why I was a little confused is because I didn't realize that all these buildings would have fallen under facilities, because I know Bruce has Joshua Hyde Library Building and Operations and the Senior Center. So I will make sure that Bruce doesn't have to pursue the same budget line items again. But I also noticed, I would have thought this fell under facilities, and it's missing is the nursery school. So Robert, and nobody has a nursery school assigned to them, so that's shame on me because I missed that in the liaison. So.
It was my budget.
I'm sorry?
I did submit it if you'd like to discuss it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
That is a budget that facilities put forward for the nursery school.
Okay, so then why, I guess because I don't have anyone assigned to it, I'm caught off, a little flat-footed here. Why the $1,945 increase?
The increase this year was to repair the fence that goes around the playground. It's falling apart in the back, and I have a price and a proposal to secure the fence to keep the children in the playground.
Okay,
And the pest control went up $600 if you look at the detail. So that gives you 1,900.
Yeah, that went up a bit too.
fence and pest control. Right, so,
I hope those are real pests and not children pests.
wow.
Just kidding.
Oh.
All right, then, I guess because I dropped the ball on this one, I'll make the motion that we go forth to, and recommend to the town meeting body, amount of $5,525 for the nursery school.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Jim. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? It's 8-0. And I guess, while we're at it, 2A Brookfield Road, that's easy enough to explain, but we do have to vote that number. So I will make a motion that we recommend to the town meeting a budget of $0.
I'll second that.
W? Any questions or comments? All those in favor? It's 8-0 as well. All right, that's one page down. Okay.
And I guess the other facilities will be handled later on, I guess. So, but I don't know if there's any other questions for Robin while she's here. It's up, I don't know what the protocol is, but,
I don't think so.
okay.
Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I do have a question for the group.
She has
Could
a
you-
question.
Did you all get your questions answered last week about the refrigerator and the safety complex questions? I watched last week's meeting and I saw you had some questions.
No, we didn't, but if you want to provide us and enlighten us, that would be great.
So, sure, I can do that. Specific to the police department refrigerator, it is part of the 1989 metal unit kitchen. And in order to enlarge the space where the refrigerator is, we would have to remove either the sink and the plumbing and the entire little kitchenette, or the wall that has the plumbing stack and the water fountain or bubbler on the other side of it. And then once we start removing walls, we're into permitted work, and we.
Okay. You know, I forget who had that question last week. Was
It works for me, yeah, that's great. That's great.
Okay, anything else related to that? I mean, that gets us to what we had identified for the line item budget this week. Next week, we have Lee, Bruce, Joe, and Mike finishing up what his odds and ends to go. Right now, it's the next thing on our agenda would be the annual and special town meeting warrant articles. At this point in time, in my exchange with Barbara, we should have them next week. So once I have them, I will forward them accordingly so everyone has them. So report of the Finance Committee, I just noted one new thing here, that maybe we could take up a topic related to the EV structures and green power for some of the buildings. So it's just another additional topic to add to that list of, issues for your consideration.
So Kevin, when you say we'll have them next week, you mean next Thursday?
Yeah,
Because we're
I
meeting
would,
with-
I would actually hope we would have them by next Monday,
So we
because
can
the
talk
selectmen
about,
were supposed to have them done this week.
they were discussing them, I watched part of the meeting, but we're meeting with them on the 19th. It'd be nice to have them available for us on the 19th.
Yeah, it would, because I would also like to have the chance to everyone to read them and have them ready so that we can take them up starting Thursday night.
Okay.
I mean, on all honesty, I was expecting them this week, because I thought the selectmen were supposed to have them done on Tuesday night at that meeting that happened on the 12th.
They didn't finish them up.
Okay, so, the best I can get is I'm gonna get them next week.
So for clarification, so that no,
Just to clarify, if I could.
Sure.
So I'm off this week, believe it or not. Okay, so, and Monday's a holiday, so you're not gonna have them on Monday.
Yeah, it's a Patriots' Day.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's right,
You get an extra day for your taxes, come on. You have to appreciate
Yeah.
that.
already paid them.
You?
Yes.
Tax day's tomorrow.
Tax day
Now,
is
it's a Washington DC holiday, so it goes to Monday, but we have Patriots' Day, so we get to
the
go
19th,
Tuesday.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Come on, you have to play every angle when you're doing taxes.
so you sent a note out about posting for selectmen, that's Tuesday, so we're expect to have a joint meeting again, planning a joint meeting with the selectmen?
It's not, I wouldn't call it a joint meeting. We're holding a meeting at the same time as the Board of Selectmen to hear the information as being provided to the Board of Selectmen by the town engineers for dealing with the, renovation of the sewer services, so that the sewer flow that's coming from Fiskill Road and that new development, instead of taking a left to Southbridge, is gonna take a right and come to our. And they're gonna do all of that, talk about new water rates, new sewer rates, and all that stuff while we're there. The hope is that we'll be recognized for any questions, but technically it is their meeting. But since we're attending en masse to hear the information, I don't want to have anybody thinking, any questions we may ask could constitute deliberation, and just make sure we're covered.
Yeah, it's
We're posting.
So the intent and the scope is to hear about the sewer upgrade study plan, not to talk about warrant articles or other.
That is correct. We're only there for water and sewer.
Thank you.
Well, you took care of my new business topic, that's good. All right, so we have a set of meeting minutes. And I know there was,
Me too.
there was some comments, I believe, sent in, but with this one here, this is, I guess the title would be Joint FinCom BOS meeting from 3/31/22, minutes draft. Have you considered that, if anyone has any comments or anything, I know there was some general ones about using initials, just to make it a little easier and time-friendly, but I'm willing to hear any comments that could make these minutes more reflective of what happened. Go ahead, Larry.
I'd like to suggest that all of the minutes have a formal tone to them, not conversational, that the standard format of listing names followed parenthetically by the initials, where there are duplicates like BB, it becomes BBA, BBO, and that there be a sort of arm's length feel to the language, because these are memorialized for official government proceedings, not some sort of pen pal thing. I tried to convey that in an email to you. I forwarded that to the officers of this committee, the chair, the vice chair, and the clerk, who actually signs these. Readability doesn't have to, in my view anyway, be casual. It just has to be clear, concise, and above all, accurate and unmistakable. We don't know when, if ever, but it can happen that these minutes find themselves in a court of law. And there's nobody around who lived the meeting. The minutes are supposed to freeze in time. So my own strong recommendation, beyond a suggestion is that that more formal tone be adopted for all of the minutes for the Finance Committee.
Anyone else, questions?
So like, just somewhat clear, I understand the, instead of saying, Bob said this and Sally responded this way, to use the initials in there, the more formal tone, are you, instead of saying, MH said whatever, are there other specific, can you point to some specific changes you'd like to see as we review those?
There shouldn't be any characterizations. It's the words that count.
So concepts,
And the context. Jim has pointed out that you have to know a lot about a sentence or two reference with respect to the wastewater treatment and Southbridge, and it just sort of happens in the minutes. So there have to be some interpolations. The goal, I think, is that somebody who moves into town today, never been here before, reads the minutes and understands them as if they were in the room when they occurred.
and I thought that happened up front where we talked about that they
I
would know
can
that.
furnish you minutes from, say, the Charter Review Committee that are a good example, I think, 5 years ago and currently, of how to document decisions.
I would have hoped you said that you can furnish some old finance committee minutes, because we've been doing that all along to the standard that you're setting there. But okay, I got you. Yeah, certainly in reading that set where, Barbara discussed the following, and there were some, I thought just factual statements of things that came in kind of fit that, but I'll have to relook at the later sections to see how it fits the tone.
I'm not saying that it was an unalloyed failure. I'm just saying that it has to be consistent in its tone and have it's official stuff. It's not, well, we all got together, kind of a feel to the words.
Okay.
We're not sitting here as individuals.
Agree. So I guess, Alyssa, you'd like to, maybe with that guidance, take another shot at them, and we can take a look at them, and if you have any questions, maybe you can reach out to myself?
In a meeting like this, you have motions, you have seconds, you have very specific. There was, I think, the motion. There wasn't any very. So I totally hear what you're saying, totally. But I felt like that was a more relaxed discussion. So there wasn't many people saying, oh, here's what we have to look. So I was hoping that the tone of it, that I was catching the tone of it, much different than this meeting tonight, very cut and dry. Really, budget and almost everything needed. For that, really, short of the discussion, wasn't sure there was so much substance, just, and I can do the initial. That's no problem. So, in that shorter, so that would be the only thing that I would say, that would not be the type of, that wasn't until, where it was kind of just.
Well, there's a remedy for that. There is a remedy for that, which is to simply say, in a rolling discussion, the following remarks were made as indicated by the speaker's initials. And down the line you go. Yep.
And I guess the only other thing I point out, you did have in there, these are finance committee meeting minutes, and there was a joint meeting, and there was a motion and a second and adjournment of the selectmen's, portion of the meeting. I would take that out. That would, I think, go in their minutes, and not relevant to our committee meetings. Yep.
Anyone else with
You don't think,
comments?
though, that you would note that they adjourned, because then we did go on? I mean, I don't know if I'd go into who did it, just that
I thought we
Adjourned.
adjourned separately.
We
we did. But then we didn't, we went on to talk about a couple more things, or, well, just some scheduling.
Right.
And they were gone. I mean, I think that it should still say, the Board of Selectmen adjourned it.
I'm okay with that.
Maybe not, well, the motion, I don't think we need that in there, but I think to note that we were going on without them being part of the meeting.
So the Board of Selectmen adjourned their meeting, the Finance Committee continued.
They adjourned their meeting and left.
That's a good way to do it.
One further thing that has major implications when it comes to abstentions. If it turns out that someone who is already registered in the minutes as being in attendance, somebody on this committee, who just happens to step out of the room during a vote and therefore did not vote, the tally of that particular motion must recognize that at a certain time, at 8:07 p.m., John Jones stepped away from the dais. Then there's a tally. Otherwise, you're going to say somebody's missing or there's a typo. But when it comes to abstentions, because of conflict of interest implications, it's very important to document then that John Jones returned to the meeting at 8:11 p.m.
You know, Lisa, I will help you. Yeah. No, it didn't
No,
happen at that meeting.
No, it did
No,
not.
but we're saying going forward, because I usually try to recognize that, it's especially important too when we call a meeting or at 7, and Kathy shows up at 7:20, and then and you say Kathy Neal, arrived at 7:20 PM, so that any differences are noted, and then
Yeah,
what?
then the vote numbers would be
Would
different,
shift,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Or
that should definitely
like
be
Larry
noted.
said, someone stepped out of the room for whatever reason, and we had a vote, you would say, Larry stepped away from the podium at, and I'll help you note this, because usually I try to track this too. At 8:08, and he came back at 8:22. Just so that all those discrepancies he's talking about are accounted for by someone who's reading this at some date in the future.
And it's possible somebody could actually have to leave early.
No, yeah, absolutely,
too.
yeah.
Not
No.
just a conflict, but, oops, gotta go, and that should be noted too, because then the vote would be different.
Yeah, no, exactly. Jim, did you have a?
I did, and it's only because, and has nothing to do, has to do with the conversation regarding the wastewater, the pump station and the wastewater. And because if you're not familiar with exactly what's involved there, and you read these minutes, you won't understand. These minutes don't address it. And I'm not saying, I guess what I am saying is it wasn't addressed specifically in the conversation that took place, so it was impossible for you to accurately record what the real meaning is behind this. We all know that we're gonna build a pump station down near Southbridge to reverse the flow back to our wastewater treatment plant, because right now that sewage is flowing by gravity to Southbridge, not to a pump station. It's flowing to their wastewater treatment plant over on Dresser Hill. It's eventually getting pumped up there. But if you read this, you don't get that picture. And I think the minutes should reflect what this is about. What's implied here is not stated clearly. Well, it was implied at the meeting, and some of us could infer it because we knew the rest of the picture.
All you have to do is put an asterisk at the foot at the end of the minutes, put an asterisk, N period, B period, nota bene, and then spell it out.
And I wrote something that says specifically, included is a new pump station to redirect Sturbridge's wastewater, treatment facility to redirect to Sturbridge's wastewater treatment facility, wastewater that is currently flowing to Southbridge and is treated at their, I put WWTP, wastewater treatment plant. The 25-year agreement between the towns, it says expires in January. January when? I assume it's January 2023, but if you want this will give you an idea to what Larry's referring to as the NB. Because if you read this, you don't know this unless you've been involved in it repeatedly and been around it. So that's all I'm having.
I think I saw Ken's hand up at one point, too.
No, I just have a question, because these meetings are recorded, right? You go back afterwards, because you're trying to type when everybody's talking. I think it's an impossible task, personally. I don't think it's humanly possible. But do you, after the fact, go in the room, quiet, get a cup of coffee, listen to it, but at the same time, like it was brought up, somebody leaves the meeting, you can't get that in the minutes, be the conference, but you can see it, like was brought up, rightfully. So what's the process to do with this? Because you can't possibly pick up when people are. Mm-hmm.
The minutes are wonderful. I often, if I hear something and I'm not, I'll write down, I'll mark it. I don't watch the whole meeting, especially in a meeting like. So I don't usually listen.
But they're available in multiple sources, too.
That's what I'm saying, but if it's a tough task.
So Jim, I don't disagree with your comment about adding context around, a discussion so a reader picking up the minutes can get that. On the other hand, I don't think that's something we have to do in the minutes. That reader could also go back and pick up a series of minutes to see what the overall big picture is there.
Well,
But
the verbiage here doesn't, when you say it's going to the Southbridge pump station, nobody said that. It wasn't going to a Southbridge pump station, it's going to the Southbridge wastewater treatment plant. So that's an inaccuracy right there, because
Okay.
it wasn't expressed clearly by the people that were having the conversation. I mean, I remember the conversation. You can go back and watch it as you do. I go back and watch the meetings to make sure
The minutes,
Board of Selectmen from the other night. I'll watch it before the end of the weekend.
the minutes ought to answer questions, head off questions, not create questions and let them hang.
Agreed. Okay.
So I think you got the feedback you were looking for. Okay.
All right, and if you want to send them to myself and/or Kevin before the larger group to take another look at, I'm happy to take a look at it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
All right, so
Take a while.
we'll do that. So, next on the agenda, old business? Anybody?
Kevin, I'm not sure, maybe I should have done it through the new business, but I did just want to address the group to apologize for my attendance. I had a series of conflicts at work and then a personal issue that kept, please don't take that as a lack of commitment or interest. It was a lack of time availability. I do have one other conflict in the upcoming weeks. I, of course, will let you know, but other than that, I expect and intend to be here. So just thought it was important to address the group on that.
Thank you. All right. We'll use that as the introduction to new business. We already kind of covered my one topic I had in there, which was the April 19th meeting that got posted this week, where we're going to attend the Board of Selectmen meeting, so we hear all of that discussion related to water, sewer, setting of rates, everything around that. So we have an idea when those will come in the warrant articles, more or less. Okay, anyone else with new business?
I'll just say, in regards to the minutes, and just maybe this is new, regarding the free cash flow, where is that, what direction is that taking? Is that, it was brought up by select person that, what are we gonna do with the free cash flow? There was a question of, do we use it for future projects, fortunately? And then it was brought up, no, it's just the townspeople's monies. And I was with in another township, okay, and the same thing took place, and it was actually a regular meeting, town meeting, and they voted as to what to do and with it, and it was quite heated, to be honest with you.
Here it's set in a warrant article, what's going to happen as far as some amount of dollars is usually set aside to go to offset the tax rate. And then the rest of those funds usually are kept around as a savings as a war chest to fund usually
There you go.
one-time capital expenses. It's not meant to fund ongoing operational costs. It's usually one-time expenses. And in the time, well, I don't know, it must be 10 or 11 years ago, when the tornado came through town, having that war chest was really, really crucial because we could pay for things immediately. We weren't waiting for reimbursements or okays to spend money in deficit. We could pay for it and go. And, so there are times you may think, well, why do you need that type of money? Well, you look at if one of the pumps at the wastewater treatment plant go, you're talking, it's a $500,000 pump, if not more. It's so those things are expensive when they go.
It's emergency fund based.
I see Mike's telling me I gave a bad example because that's a special revenue fund, but I was trying to give. I'll give you one. Was about 8 years ago when we wrecked a fire truck for $360,000 and had to have it replaced. So,
So is having a lot of free cash a good thing? I think if I'm sitting in our finance committee, say, yeah, we got a pile of money in there that we can use to fund these things that come up. On the other hand, governments are really setting budgets for the coming fiscal year and raising from taxes from people who live in town today, the money to fund next year and then the year forward. So free cash really means we collected more money in taxes than we really needed, and we're building up the savings account that maybe we'll use somewhere down the road. So that's where the rub comes from the public that says, well, you got all this cash, you overtaxed me last year because you want to build up this free cash thing. If we want to build up stabilization funds and so forth, those are warrant articles where the town votes, yeah, take a little bit of my money, extra than you need to run the government this year, and build that up for those, offset some of those other things down the road. But generally, the government's, you live in town this year, we're going to collect your taxes to fund this year's thing, and we're not going to overtax and build up this money for use down the road. So, your earlier question, this is probably the highest I've seen it in a while. It's been growing. I think we have a table, Barbara, I could probably find for next week to show what it's been in past years, just to get a history of it.
There is one drawback to that. We can see our credit rating drop, and right now it's close to perfect because of those $5-6 million that those same people who understandably think they've been overtaxed will wind up overpaying.
You paid a little bit more last year, but you're going to pay a little bit less year. Your taxes won't go up as much because we're going to soften out the blow.
And we go out on a bond issue. What do you think? They're going to say, here comes Sturbridge. Uh-huh.
Right.
That's why. That's the reason for having that nice and healthy.
And I
Agreed.
And I think
One of the first things a lender is going to ask you is how much money do you have in your reserve fund? That's from personal experience. How much money's in your reserve fund? Oh, well, your interest rate is this because you don't have enough money in your reserve.
I think the real
It's less.
discussion that came out of there is just, do we have actually written financial policies?
Yeah.
And is it a question, the question goes back, should those financial policies be revised? Because the ones we have right now, we're over those, but should our policies be revised to actually increase to reflect the increasing costs of these things that could be facing? Because we don't increase that, we just say it should be an X percentage of our operating budget. But we don't increase it every year with a goal in mind. It says, we want to increase our free cash balance. It's really unallocated cash balance. And by 5% every year. We don't do that. It just, there are turnbacks and things that happen that will increase that number, but that's happenstance. We haven't actually actively tried to increase the balance. That was a policy for a while, but that was probably after 2 years after I became chair the first time. Oh, it's got to be going back 15, 20 years ago, where it was an active policy to try and build out that balance, because we basically had none.
Because right now, if the policy says 10 to 12%, and we're at 20%,
Right.
we were saying, I guess 10 to 12 is prudent, good management, good fiscal management in bond ratings and alike, right? So we're at 20%, and then it was like, well, we're gonna use that to do other projects, and then it came up, well, maybe we set priorities, and maybe, so then it was like, well, maybe we change to 10 to 12 to 20% as our policy. Yeah, we'd be like AAA probably at that point. So
Yeah, but, I mean-
we're, you can't say it's good and prudent to be at 10 to 12, be 20, and have an 8% more money, and then where does it go, and who says where it goes?
And that becomes part of the discussion when we get the warrant articles, where our role is not only, you know, that's a good amount of money for that project, but how are we gonna fund it, right? Do we fund it by taxation? Do we fund it by bonding? Do we draw down that, hey, we're at $6 million, our financial policies say we only need 4, I'm just picking round numbers here. Geez, do we just, everything that's coming forward for spending articles, we just, you know, tax people and keep that $6 million balance, or do we, you know, draw from that free cash to meet some of those spending things that are in there? That's part of the financial discussion we're supposed to be having as a
And in
committee
the current
here.
economy, I draw a deep breath where inflation is now up to 8.5% before I'd start drawing that down. Because what costs a nickel today will cost a dime tomorrow, and it'll cost 25 cents next week. And we see that in all types of material costs, in labor costs. I heard an example today where an employee left a local financial institution making a local medical institution making $18 an hour, and went to Dunkin' Donuts to be counter-help for $22 an hour. If you're gonna pay someone $22 an hour to fill coffee cups, boy, I'll tell you, there's something crazy in our economy right now.
Well, the argument for a policy review is if you're going to consistently live outside the policy, above it or below it, but outside it, then why have a policy? Or have a policy, and as much as you can, live within it. But to just act one way and pretend somehow that there's a policy that's worth anything is just a touch inconsistent.
So, and if the policy is 10 to 12%, and we're at 20, you know, it doesn't mean, hey, we have to, you know, spend that money down and get it to whatever. It means we just need to start bringing it back down towards what the policy is. But you're right, if we're going to sit here and say it says 10 to 20, but we really 10 to 12, we really want to be at 20, so we're going to keep it up there all along. Then that drives the change in the policy. But you know, sometimes we're a little low, sometimes we're a little high, and we keep trying to move it over a period of time to get closer to the guidelines.
You used a good word. Do we want it at 20? So the basis for the word want, or the definition of the word want, is what data? And how solid are the projections? As Harry Truman used to say, I wish I could have as an advisor a one-armed economist, because then he couldn't say, on the other hand. That's what Truman said. So you got to have reliable, current, accurate, comprehensive data and not take your eye off it, because it's going to
And there are
change.
plenty one-time capital costs in the pipeline right now. Right? We talked, some of them, you know, the radio system, this project of putting in the pump system to divert the sewage flow. But again, that'll be in the sewer system thing, so it won't come that way. But you got the SAFER grant, if that comes along, what do you do with that? Because now you're wondering, those are operational costs, that's not a one-time thing. Those are gonna, they're gonna continue to increase, because you're always gonna have pay raises, and you're always gonna have health benefits and all that type of stuff.
Well, just a bit of good news is the wastewater treatment plant can handle that extra volume without any problem whatsoever, because we have a great deal of excess capacity. We built excess capacity intentionally.
Right. That was a good finance committee meeting. That one ended at 1:30 in the morning.
Hey, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? We would go to public access, but I don't think anyone can actually dial into that unless you have it, and there's nobody in here. So I guess that would take care of the need of public access. So, and then now I would entertain a motion of adjournment.
So moved.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, great. And that's at 8:24.
Oh, yeah, it was hard to see that clock.
I'm looking at my computer.
Yeah, that's right.
They're desperate for help.
Ours says 8:21, but
Who will volunteer.
All right, great. So Tuesday and Thursday next week.
You bet.
And do you know, Bob, we set our meeting for 6:30, but can we kind of get a sense of when the Board of Selectmen will be taking up the tie and bond part of it?
Yeah, of course, they can.
Probably around 7. I mean, we have a few items first, but I think
Okay, all right. So I don't know if anyone caught that. That's 7, so you can, 6:30 doesn't have to be hard and fast then. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. No.